Hi, welcome to Advocate for Your Rights from the Disability Law Center of Virginia. I'm Brett Parks. Today, we begin a 5-part series called Informed Decisions. We're going to talk about how to decide who decides when we can't decide. Now, I know that's a lot of decides, but this is really important for everyone, not just people with disabilities. Every adult is presumed to have what we call capacity. Capacity is the ability to take in information, make an informed decision, and communicate your decision. The thing is, capacity is fluid for all of us. Time, illness, unexpected events like accidents, these and more can affect our decision-making capacity. The good news is, there are many ways to make a plan so that our values and intentions are honored no matter what happens. We'll be going over those options in this series, and we're going to begin by discussing what we consider the last resort of shared decision-making, guardianship. It's the last resort for many reasons, with these just being a few. It's court-ordered, it takes away basic rights such as voting and marriage, it's expensive and often permanent. There is a stigma and humiliation involved when a person is declared incapacitated, and most important, it is often unnecessary. There are alternatives to guardianship that in most cases are better solutions. To learn more about some of these options, we spoke to some parents of adult children who could have petitioned the court for guardianship but decided against it. Here are their stories.
My name is Brooke Yarbrough. I just turned 25 years old.
I'm Dana Yarbrough, and I'm Brooke's mom.
Because I was born early, I have yucky medical labels like cerebral palsy, cortical visual impairment, epilepsy, and intellectual disabilities.
My name is Ronald Nickerson. I am 24.
I'm Deborah Nickerson, and I'm Ronald's mother.
Well, I had enjoyed school, and I did that for 7 years, and I graduated. I've been happy to graduate. I help my brother Chip. We work on wood and do different things like that. I like being able to make things like chairs and tables. I also like to play basketball.
I am a single parent and have been for many years. I have 6 children, ranging in age from 29 to 18 at the moment. Of those, 5 are adopted, 4 have disabilities.
I started to pay a lot more attention to things like decision-making and self-determination, which I wouldn't have thought about. Brooke's turning 18. Have you thought about guardianship? And we didn't think about it until we started hearing stories from people saying you can't go back to the school meetings without guardianship. You can't go to the hospital with Brooke, or you can't go to the doctors. And there was this idea of kind of a fear.
I do not have guardianship for any of my children with disabilities. It's something I've never believed in doing. I knew when my children were turning 18 that most people like doctors, school staff, Social Security, those people were not going to want to talk to me. They were going to want to talk to my children. I also knew that my children would have a difficult time understanding some of the things that needed to be discussed. So I knew I needed something. Guardianship wasn't the answer. I reached out to the Disability Law Center of Virginia, and together we realized that advance directive for healthcare decisions or a power of attorney was what we needed to execute if my children were comfortable doing that.
We had a meeting, and you had asked me about and explained about the ADA and other things about the law, and you asked me about if I was willing to sign these directives and power of attorney, and I was willing to do that, and I understood what was said, so I signed those things.
We began to look into what were some of the other ways that we could support Brooke's decision-making, and we had already learned how to do some of this through the ways of having her clap or slap her hand when she wanted to indicate a choice. And so we said, well, let's just go for it. Let's talk to Brooke about could we be power of attorney for Brooke, and what would that look like if we were power of attorney?
I think it comes down to trust. I trust my parents to do what's best for me and to do what I want to do whether they like it or not. I don't talk, so it takes a lot of work to learn what I like, don't like, and what I want to happen. Just because I do not talk doesn't mean I'm incompetent.
2 of my children have a document called an advance directive. My youngest son has something called a power of attorney. Should my child have any questions or need any help, I can step in. It also says if at any time the child wants to revoke that, they can. And it's very specific about the decisions. You can make this kind of decision for me, but you can't make this kind of decision for me.
I make my decision, but Mom makes other decisions, but most decisions I make. When they ask me to look at something and read something, I can understand it. If it's something I don't understand, I'll ask them directly, well, what does this mean? So that then they understand it clearly before I sign it. Most of the time, if I didn't understand what it meant, I'm able to tell them I don't understand, and then they explain it to me, and I'm able to make the decision.
By having adult children now, all of my kids are over 18, I constantly run into issues by not having guardianship. It's not an issue for us, it's that people don't understand that the way we have chosen to make decisions is acceptable. Doctors tell me I have to have guardianship. Just recently, my son had turned 18. We took him to his doctor. The nurse taking vitals and the doctor both said, you're going to have to step out because your son's 18 and we can't talk to you. And I had to explain to them that they were incorrect. And it did go okay after that. The doctor was surprised. He said, I've never heard of that. I said, well, you need to research it. Do a Google search on supported decision making.
From the medical standpoint, when we've had her having to go, well, she uses the same hospital, so pretty much people know her and know us, and so we haven't had an issue there. We didn't have an issue with school, although they needed to have their attorneys look at the power of attorney when we brought it to the school when she was 18 and wanted to participate in IEP meetings. And when the county, when we were looking at disability services and going through the county, they have what they call an authorized representative, and they said that they make the decision who that is. And I said, well, Brooks made the decision where the power of attorney, and there was a little bit of a pushback, and they again needed to have someone look at and review that. So those have been, we've had just that little kind of interesting from a school perspective and a county government perspective that they've seemed to push back, but not the healthcare, which I thought that was more my fear, was that we would get into a healthcare situation and they wouldn't accept the power of attorney.
You know your child best. You know what decisions they can make. You know where they need help. You know how they communicate. Don't let a problem with communication force you into a decision like guardianship that takes all their communication away.
And so how do we figure out as parents having these conversations and really listening to, with us, we listen to Brooke's body, but it's listening to words, it's listening to body, and figuring out how we move from being an advocate for to being an advocate with them, and that's a tough thing as a parent. We don't want to let go of that mantle because we've been carrying it for so long.
I would say that you should not use guardianship, but that you should use the power of attorney. And I think that would help you. You'd be able to learn to make decisions on yourself. You'd still be able to work with your parents and do things in your life and do what you would want to do. And I said it helped me, and I would want you to do the same, and I would explain that.
For Brooke, for me, for her father, this right for Brooke to be able to make her own decisions and for us to be supporters of those decisions has been important to her, important to us, that respect for us to do that. And why that's important is, you know, outside of just the dignity of Brooke and that dignity of respecting Brooke. And I think it is absolutely, we have no regrets. And I don't think that Brooke has ever had a regret.
No regrets whatsoever. I like seeing my children have control. And if they need help, I'm there to help them. If I had guardianship, they lose all control.
We are so grateful to these folks for sharing their stories. We hope to highlight that regardless of your situation, there may be better alternatives to guardianship. Now, is guardianship always a bad thing? No. Guardianship may be necessary in some situations. For example, for a person who has never had capacity and will probably never gain capacity. But most of the time, we recommend alternatives. They're inexpensive and simple, easy to revoke or change, and an attorney is usually not necessary. We're going to talk about these alternatives throughout the rest of this video series, so stay tuned. We'll also have a lot of helpful information on our website, dlcv.org. Thanks for watching, and remember to advocate for your rights.
The Disability Law Center of Virginia is here for you. We can help you understand your rights and point you towards resources to help address any problems related to your disability. You can contact us by calling 1-800-552-3962 or visiting our website at www.dlcv.org.
This video contains general information for educational purposes. This should not be considered legal advice. It is not a comprehensive statement of the law and may not reflect more recent legal developments. If you have specific questions concerning any matter contained in this video, or if you need legal advice, please consult with an attorney.